What are your best examples of people cheating the system? I'll start. So I work in the luggage claim department for a major airline. All day I get to hear customers yelling and complaining. What I did is borrow one of the wheelchairs from the airport and sit behind my desk all day long. Customers come in all angry, see me in the wheelchair, realize they are about to yell at a guy who is possibly crippled, and all of a sudden they turn into the nicest people. Physically my blood pressure has dropped and in general I'm in a pretty good mood most of the time. Edit. In the good old days of Black Friday, before stores like Best Buy started getting very crafty and clandestine with their deals, 8+ years ago, there used to be a slight buffer where someone would leak the sales and the items wouldn't be removed from the shelves. I don't remember specifically, but they had a system to prevent you from purchasing then prismaching retroactively. As soon as this happened, I strolled on down to Best Buy, took a bunch of stuff that I wanted, and put it in their dryers and washing machines. Basically whatever hiding place that didn't look like it got a lot of browsing or consideration. Then when Black Friday comes, sleep in. Head to the store around noon and pull the doorbusters out of a washing machine. When I was a teenager I worked at a McDonald's where the beverages were self-serve. We just sold you the cup. Once, on a particularly slow day when I was the only one at the registers, an older man walked in with an empty gallon of milk carton, walked over to the Coke dispenser, and started to fill. It took a full minute or two, and he actually looked over at me once, where I was watching him utterly fascinated. When he was done, he put the little cap back on, nodded to me, then walked back out to his car. At my university I would always order delivery from a late night eatery and get a ride home with the delivery guy. Less expensive than a taxi. With a meal included. QPRNO music. Anyone old enough to remember BMG Music Club? They were that company always advertising 9 or 12 CDs for the price of one. As a kid I got them to send me literally hundreds of CDs without paying by inventing new aliases. Here is a Canadian one. Being Canadian, it's even ethical. Wait outside a superstore gas station and watch for users that leave the receipt. On the end of each left receipt is a superbuck. 20 minutes and you can collect enough for lunch. Saw a bum doing this. Thought it was pretty creative. My favorite homeless entrepreneur asked people for their tickets when they left a nearby paid parking lot early and sold them for $0.50 each. A teacher I had in high school always said to his students, if you can get away with cheating, go for it. Turns out he had gotten a raise for getting his master's degree, but never actually got the degree. This went on for over 10 years before the school system figured it out. Somehow he got hired at a new school too. Classic winger. I use LimeWire to download LimeWire Pro. Every time someone posts this I find myself grinning and nodding my head. I thought I was a f***ing genius when I did it. I know a married couple who started a food blog basically so they can write off their entire grocery bill. About 3 years ago, bought an old battered rod Xbox off of Craigslist for $40. Apparently the previous owners never registered it, and at the time, Microsoft was allowing Xboxes less than 2 years old to be replaced if they had ROD. This thing was older than that, but I figured I had nothing to lose so I sent it in. Microsoft never said a word and I got a brand new one in the mail about 2 weeks later. When I was a precociously computer savvy 10-11-year-old, I found a website that parents could set up as a reward system for children doing chores. The parent would set up an account listing several chores and assign them point values. The child, after completing these chores, could then use the points to buy various items offered on the website. There was, somehow, no charge for any of the stuff. So, I created 2 email accounts, 2 passwords on the site, and set up a really generous reward system where I got tons of points for doing imaginary chores. I used this to buy a shitload of Pokemon cards that I then played with my grandpa because I didn't actually have any friends. Ninja Edit. If anyone remembers anything about this website, I actually tried to find it again years later and couldn't. Probably due to the terrible unsustainable business model. Please share. This website was set up by your grandfather who needed an excuse to play Pokemon. It was a long con. At my university they have parking passes which scale in price depending on what time of day you use them. Most expensive is 24 hours and the rest scale down in price in level of most traffic to least. The parking garages are also open to the public at a daily rate. A lot of my friends bought the cheapest pass with the most constricting hours. I think it's only after 4 PM they can use them. So what they do is come in the morning and take a ticket as if they're going to use a daily rate. Then at the end of the day they swipe out with their garage pass. I was flying last month. And the plane I was on had Wi-Fi. There was a free 15-minute trial. And then you could purchase a chunk of time. I just kept deleting the cookies on my phone. Refreshing. And logging back in. I stayed online for over an hour for free. This reminds me of when I was on a late night train which had free TV for 5 minutes on back of seat screens. You're a menace to society. My sister and I were once given questionnaires at an aquarium where you had to scratch off the correct answers to questions that were hidden around the complex. If you got them all right, you won a prize. I figured that I could just scratch off all the answers on one sheet and then just do the correct answers on the other and hand that in. Perfect score. My boss will often check the date modified on certain files on our server to see if I have updated or even opened a certain file recently. So, I have installed a changer utility that allows me to modify the date modified on any file. This comes in most handy when my boss wants to give me weekend assignments. I just come in on Monday morning and change the date modified to Saturday night and he thinks I was actually doing something for work on Saturday night. I've actually received a lot of kudos for this. I don't feel bad though. Because my boss is a huge dickhead. Back in high school I would buy massive quantities of arcade tokens from the manufacturers off of eBay. I was getting about $10 worth of tokens for each $1 spent. I was there one afternoon when some kid went up to the counter and pointed out that the token machine was giving out tokens from some other arcade. The college I commuted to didn't have enough parking for the commuters but roughly 10 times what it needed for the residents. One day I was forced to park in the resident parking and got a ticket. Every day I had to park there I'd slip the ticket under my windshield wiper and walk on into class. The cars around me would get tickets but they'd just leave the old one on my windshield figuring they already got me. Never even paid it. Worcester State did a horrible job of enforcing parking fines 10 years ago. I did this at my school. I put the ticket under my windshield and for the first time or so it worked. Then I started getting tickets again. One day I sat outside, when I parked legally, and watched the parking guys do their thing. Turns out they mark the tires of the newly ticketed with chalk. It's genius. Really? Who looks at their tires? So then I noted the rotation of colors they used and bought my own chalk. At the arcade if you pull the ticket out real slow and careful you can get an extra one. Boom. I lived in a trailer park next to a Chuck E. Cheese and before they got the shredders, they just threw out the old tickets in trash bags. I'd wait until the shift changed the next day and split the tickets with my friends. Great system. I used to be a member of NY Sports Club. It is a semi-expensive gym here. At the time if you forgot your ID card you could just tell the person behind the desk your number. I always forgot. After a while I noticed I was transposing 2 numbers in my ID and they were still letting me in. I cancelled my membership and had free all access gym membership for 3 years. I did this at a local racket club for a while. The very first time, I walked in like I knew the people behind the desk. I waved and said a very friendly hello like I was happy to be seeing them again. There was a guy and a girl working the desk and they both smiled and waved back as I walked in without paying or showing an ID card. Perhaps each thought I knew the other? I did this on Monday nights for several months and it worked every time. After a while, they did recognize me and the smiles and hellos became genuine. My co-worker would leave at 4 PM to go to the bathroom. leaving the office light on, his chair at an angle, and the computer on, no power save. He would disappear until 9 AM the next morning. Boss never figured it out. Every time my old Lexmark printer ran out of ink, I'd tell their tech support that the printer no longer detected my ink cartridges. They'd then send me new ink. I still haven't stopped doing this. When buying a new car, instead of going to a showroom and haggling with them, go to Cars.com, find dealers around you. Ask them for quotes over email. Once they send you quotes over email, edit the price mentioned in the email and forward it to some other dealer. The other dealer will reduce his price below this. Edit that email to reduce the price and send it to the first dealer. Keep doing it. Got $24,000 car for $17,000, all taxes included. Old job gave us smoke breaks, but number 15-minute breaks for non-smokers. I explained this was bullshit to my boss. He didn't get it. So I took up smoking again. I'd take 15 minutes every shift to stand behind the building with a lit cigarette, puff it once, and then call my girlfriend on the phone. I actually know someone that started smoking for this reason. She had never smoked before. They knew who smoked and who didn't and restricted those extra 15-minute smoke breaks to real smokers. Now she's addicted. I worked at a place that ended up doing the opposite. I was the only smoker in the programming team, and someone apparently complained about me taking regular breaks. So, next morning the team was told that everyone was to take a 10-minute break every hour to reduce eye strain and carpal tunnel, and could smoke if they happened to feel like it. I miss that place. For me it doesn't go much further than crapping on company time. Still, I like those craps so much more than the ones at home. The boss makes $1 when I make a dime. That's why I sh*t on company time. Whenever people come to the pool where I lifeguard and have guests with them, I always ask them if they live more than 50 miles away. Our policy is guests from more than 50 miles away don't pay guest fees. If they say no, I give them the look and ask them again. They usually say yes after that. Saving customers $2 like a boss. There is nothing better than employees who try to save customers money. Having worked in customer service, I have no idea what in the hell compels you to do it. But I thank and commend you. I used to work at a restaurant that would track our tip percentage, but not too much else of our activity. The amount of tables we got per night would be based on our tip percentage. And there was also a regional leaderboard. We were allowed to buy food from the restaurant, but we couldn't bring ourselves in. Which led me and my friend Jim to our greatest discovery. We would buy a side of mashed potatoes from each other. $2.00-ish side. And pay with a credit card. We would then tip each other $10-12. A 500-600% tip. We would do this every so often. Not enough to be ridiculous. And within a few months we were the top servers in the entire region, with an average tip percentage of over 30%, thereby granting us some kind words from management and the most tables per night of the whole restaurant. TLDR. Paid $14.00 for a side of mashed potatoes. I've been cancelling and switching the name on my cable bill now for 10 years between myself and my wife, so I always get the new customer's rate. It's Comcastic. A guy in my neighborhood owned a piece of land where buildings had been planned to be built after his wife died. Eerie coincidence. Yes, he turned it into a graveyard with only her grave in it so the government couldn't take the land. I used to work at Walden Books back in the day. There was a dude who used to routinely come in and buy bargain books. He would then go home and come back another time with the bargain books with the stickers ripped off to return them and claim he didn't have a receipt. We would then have to give him store credit for the price that the books rang up as, always more than the discounted bargain sticker. He would then come back at a later time and use the store credits to buy full price books. He would then come back one final time and return the books with a receipt for cash. It used to irritate me when he would do this because I knew what he was doing and there wasn't anything I could do about it. Interestingly enough, This very same man would become a supervisor of mine at another place I worked at later and was a pretty cool guy. I never mentioned to him that I knew about his scheme. But even if I told him, he would have given 0 FCKS. I bring all my rechargeable items, shaver, cell phone, laptop, etc., to work and plug them in there. I figure I must have saved at least $1 to $2 last year in electricity. 1. Get a credit card with free miles for every purchase. 2. Buy gold $1 coins in bulk from the U.S. Mint, free shipping. 3. Use the dollar coins to pay off your credit card. 4. Profit. Pretty sure it doesn't work anymore. But yeah. Rosebud. I do this thing where you buy the ticket for one movie and then nonchalantly walk into the theaters for other movies within the theater after the first movie finishes. I believe the technical term for this is old lady, 80s, at my college bookstore. Walked in the back with a bag. Placed 2 books in her bag. And then I watched walk to the front as she sold them back to the bookstore. I wanted to say something. I'm not surprised. In Russia, we shop like this. 1. Enter store. 2. Buy item. Keep receipt. 3. Couple days later go back to store. Bring just the receipt. 4. Pick up identical item you bought before. 5. Go to checkout and say you want to return item. 6. Show receipt as proof. 7. Get money back. 8. In Norway almost every store have a 3 weeks free return policy. So when I had a movie project at school I bought a camera for about $700 only to return it when I was finished. Edit. Another story but not me. I saw some guys at a pizza restaurant in Norway, Dolly Dimples. They ordered a pizza. Ate it leaving 1 piece. Then they went to the counter telling them it was a hair on that piece and they got a new pizza. This actually disgusted me. I bought over 300 pens for a school project with the same goal in mind. But I was too lazy and now I have pens all over my f***ing house. My wife and I were at a super fancy restaurant in New York City. Reservations not allowed. Expect a wait. We get there and are told we will be waiting about 2 hours. No problem, we planned on this. Some guy right after us shook the reservation guy's hand, handing him $200. Next thing I know I hear table for 2 for Thomas. Thomas being my name and I asked for a table of 2. I say that is me. They sit us and we order drinks and apps. 5 minutes later they say we are the wrong Thomas but we could stay since we had already ordered. Guess who was the right Thomas? The guy who paid $200 to skip the line. Torrenting college textbooks. I love the internet. I once torrented textbook for a computer ethics class. I graduated from my college 3 years ago. I still use my student ID for discounts. Got a negative removed from my credit report. Once you have a negative on your report it stays on for 7 years. There are exceptions. Write a letter to all 3 agencies telling them that the negative is a mistake and that by law they must investigate it and provide proof of their investigation within 30 days. You can send these letters every 30 days as well. And they must investigate it each time. The agencies don't have the resources to investigate each claim. So they often just remove it. When I wrote my letters the first 2 agencies removed the negative the first time. The other agency did the investigation and responded saying that it was in fact accurate. I sent the same letter a month later and they dropped it that time. You should use old-fashioned snail mail as it is more difficult to process that way. Worked like a charm and now I have a perfect credit history. One of the best cheats ever. Know how they have the 3-month free premium channel thing when you switch TV providers? You can get that without switching by calling up your provider and asking to speak to a supervisor and spinning a yarn about how you're unsure since XXXX company will offer you the premium channels. The supervisor's job is to ensure customer satisfaction and they get in trouble if people leave the service under their watch. As such you will often get a price cut or free premium service. Cox Cable. 5 years free HBO. Stars. I did this for about 3 years with Comcast to get better rates for cable. But then I realized I was still paying $100 a month for mostly shit I never watched, so I got rid of cable completely and don't miss it a bit.